My never I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there. I see them. Yopo.
Billion.
Yes.
God.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that
the only channel
60
that brings you the
billion
best
cedis
and latest updates in
and
politics.
thereabouts and
If
some
you're new here,
changes are
please don't forget
GDP.
to
So
subscribe
if you
to
say
the channel. Hit the
you have
notification bell, like
retrieved
and also share to
stolen
other members
assets
to watch
worth
as well.
$20
Can you kindly leave a
billion,
comment at
$60
the
billion.
comment section after
So
watching,
that's
or
one
send
thing.
us a voice
That's a
note
lot.
on our WhatsApp
So let's
number,
talk to Daniel Domelevo briefly on this. Thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you. I want you to join me listening to
Mr. Domelevo, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
oral reporting by
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Domelevo.
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you.
So just to put it in context, is it because it was a transition period and not all state agencies had been put together that necessitated the formation of a group like the Oral? Is that possibly the reason why the president did this? Can you give us some insight into, because you've worked in formal governance institutions like you've been an auditor general before, and you know the process for going through audits and also checking to recover stolen assets. So if you can talk a bit about the basis for which the president put this group together.
Okay, thank you very much. If I got the president right, he made it clear that first and foremost, he promised he was going to recover all loot during the campaign period. And after the election, when he was declared the winner, he was inundated with several calls, people coming with evidence and say, information, sorry, not evidence. People coming with information to say there's loot here, there is wastage here, stealing here, etc. And so he thought it wise to have a team who people could go to so that we can collect all this information and then more as it were, separate them into various categories, which he can give to the Attorney General to work on. So the information we presented yesterday, for instance, there are some which have to do with issues bordering on corruption and corruption-related cases, which I expect that the Attorney General may push them to the OSP. There are some which border on organized crime and money laundering, etc., which I expect may go to YOCO. The bulk of it needs auditing. So to establish whether those procurement processes and disbursements were in line with the legislation. So I think that occasioned it. And given the situation that we found on the ground, it is clear that people were not ready to submit some of the information to the accountability institutions or anti-graft institutions. I was surprised by the quantum of data or information which was coming. And even with the team, people still even do not believe the entire team. So some people would like to go through COP Kofi Boachi because they believe in him. Some will come through me, some will go through Okujetu Ablakwa, etc. So even within the team, because some people are afraid that when they supply those information, and mind you, most of this information are coming from public servants who are still in office. They are afraid of being victimized. And so they are looking for somebody they can trust who will protect their identity. Thank you.
And so was this like public-led in terms of, so Oral is waiting to be contacted by whistleblowers, or there are things you already know that you will pursue? So what was the bulk? If you have maybe 10 cases, what percentage would be things people brought to you versus things that you went to look into yourself?
We didn't go into anything ourselves. We didn't do any investigation ourselves. All were brought to us, including issues that were already known. You remember before even the election, there were a lot of issues that had been tabled or listed as the looting of public properties or funds and properties. So those were part of what we looked at collecting the evidence or the information on it, and as well as several others which people brought to us.
I see. Now, there are already known cases of irregularities, infractions in public boards, institutions, and corporations. Did the oral look into those as well? Because then that would not need a whistleblower. And again, because you've been former Auditor General, you know that, for example, in our MDAs, there are procurement breaches, there are all kinds of things that happen. Did your work include looking into those types of issues as well?
No, we did not. We're not looking at those things that we know naturally the Auditor General will go after. Because, for instance, the financial year 2024 has just ended by the dictate of the Public Financial Management Act. The MDAs or the Ministries, Department, and agencies are supposed to submit their financial statements to the Auditor General and the Accountant General at the end of this month, which is February this month. So when that is done, Accountant General is also supposed to prepare his consolidated financial statement and submit it to the Auditor General at the end of March. Then the audit of the ministries, departments, and agencies will commence. So we are not looking at those basic issues which naturally audits will cover. We are also, for instance, aware that there is a huge amount of amount payable, or what we call in accounting, accounts payable. Some people will get it better when I say credited. Amount liabilities that the government has to pay as at the end of 2024. Since the figure has not yet been officially communicated, I would not like to mention the amount. But it's huge. That, for instance, we know that the Auditor General may have to go in. You remember, I did such an audit in 2018 and disallowed 5.4 billion. So we have not considered those ones yet. And in fact, those ones are not part of our problems because we know those ones will be taken care of.
Great. Now, I have in front of me the presentation. I mean, I don't know how many pages, quite a substantial number of pages of the oral document. And I see a lot of known scandals generally listed. So, for example, if just for the sake of knowing whether it's the same document you presented to the president, this document has listed, for example, the oral case. Then it starts with the 25 billion CD banking sector cleanup, luxurious presidential private jet travels, $58 million National Cathedral, payment of salaries to Cathedral Board, $108 million ambulance scandal, 208. So, I mean, these are known scandals that were either investigated by journalists or whistleblown by anti-corruption groups or found out by some members of the opposition at the time. Why did you include these known stories in your reports to the president?
Yeah, but you know that our job is to collect complaints that come to us. So as long as it is included in the complaint, we capture it. We know the committee is not having a mandate to investigate. Our hours is record keeping or collection of data. So be it known or unknown, once it comes to our attention, we will collect it and put it across.
And so if the person, so what were the parameters for making a complaint admissible? So were you opening with a blank sheet? So once Bernard Avle comes and complains that Godfred Akotobuafu has stolen some land at Ajingano, which he believes to be for the government, you add it to your list of complaints?
Exactly. All that we would like to do is that, Ben, how did you arrive at the conclusion that it belongs to government? And at times he gives us that, look at this document, look at this letter or this publication, or he did a search and he shows that it is for government, we will include it.
So it means that you receive complaints and you receive what the complainant brings as evidence. You do not do a preliminary investigation to even establish cause.
We do not do any investigation to go beyond what has been given us, because that was not our mandate. If you look at the mandate given us by the president, he didn't say we should do some preliminary investigation. However, there are some of the cases, after listening to it, you will see clearly that maybe it's personal scores the person wants to settle. It has nothing to do with losing government money. For instance, he thinks that we have all been bidding for a job at the Ministry of Health, and it is only Ben who has been winning. I have tried it 5 times. They didn't give me. So there is corruption there. We say, okay, we hear you, but we don't think we can include such frivolous claim. But some of them, they give evidence that, look, this thing, the contract, we bidded for it. The person who won the contract has an inferior solution, that is the technical specification, and the highest cost, but he is the one who won. This requires a further audit to establish whether it was a responsive tender which won or did not win. And we did not go into that. And that will have taken us months if you want to do that, if not years.
All right, now I see estimated cost of financial scandals listed in US dollars, and almost 20-something scandals are listed amounting $18.4 billion. Now, my question is, how do you estimate the value of a scandal? So for example, you say the Lamen's investment fine is 3.4 million. Then West Blue, 4 million. Illegal money printing, 4 billion. I mean, is it not, I'm trying to understand, is it the value of the overall project that then is what the value of the scandal is, or the amount misappropriated within the value of the project that you are using? Because I suspect this could be an overestimation of how much Ghana could actually get, if you get my question.
I do get your beef. The point is that it's a combination of factors. If you are mindful of Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General, the Supreme Court ruled on Article 1877, which is the disallowance and surcharges. And they made it very clear that once an expenditure is contrary to law, it must be disallowed and recovered. If you have a copy of the Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General, you will see the consequential orders issued by the Supreme Court. So if, for instance, you procured a vehicle and you went to procure the vehicle illegally, the total amount is illegal. It is not the difference. Okay? So there are situations like that. Again, the Supreme Court said that if an amount is supposed to be brought into an account and you didn't bring it, this is where we're talking about the value difference, which you are talking about, or when there is a loss.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. So I get, and time for clarification, because, for example, the SkyTrain project, $2 million is written, which would be probably the full amount because we didn't get anything from that. But if you look at, say, the DRIP project, one could argue that maybe we could have gotten the equipment at a lower price. So the single source did and they spent 178.7 million, but maybe the equipment value was maybe 50 million. But in putting the 178 there, you have overestimated the value of the scandal, have you not?
No. I remember the computation they did over there. They were looking at what it should have been paid versus what was paid. Because, mind you, the DRIP project, the equipment was imported tax-free. They didn't pay tax and etc. So they calculated if we went into another shop which is supplying those equipment, how much will it have cost if they didn't pay tax or minus tax? So it is not the total amount. I can't remember all the transactions. In fact, the transactions are plenty and I didn't work on all of them. So it's very difficult if you pick on specific transactions. Unless you and I will sit down and I go back into the report and see how it was arrived at. There's a detailed report which shows how the figures were computed for each transaction to guide the Attorney General.
Now, for somebody who looks at our GDP, the total amount of money that the report presented to the president, amounting to how much can potentially be recovered, is about $20 billion. And Mr. Domelevo, Ghana's GDP is about 60 something billion dollars. So, I mean, a third of our GDP, that is unbelievable. So is it that this is just the overall value of general corruption?
Yeah.
Or because don't forget, you see, your name is Operation Recover or Loot. So you may be guilty of giving us false hope that there's some 20 billion somewhere we can retrieve.
You are making a wrong comparison. You are looking about complaints spanning a period of time as against 1 year's GDP. So unless you put together the GDP of all those years and calculate, so you are making a very wrong calculation. I disagree.
No, what I'm saying is that if you recover, what I'm saying is that if you are to recover 20 billion,
assuming we said that is the amount per annum or per year, then you can compute it based upon the GDP of the country.
No, I'm not looking at it. I'm not looking at it from the point of view. I understand your distinction. What I'm trying to say is that assuming we even recover half of the $20 billion, that would be 1/6 of a year's GDP.
Okay.
Which is unfathomable.
Yeah. To be honest with you, anytime you look at all the figures, it's unfathomable. At times you look at the figures and it's mind-boggling how such quantum of money could be paid for no work done. But let me say that people should be aware of the fact that this report findings is based upon information we have calculated, we have received without doing a thorough investigation. This figure can go up. It can multiply into 2 or 3 after investigation. So it can also reduce to half or a third or whatever after investigation. But even after that, Ben, even when investigation has established that the amount is actually 21 point something billion, it depends upon the court. If we go to the court and the court says that we don't find merit in your argument, you will not be able to recover that. I am even aware that in situations where the court has found merit in the case, like Woyome's case, I wonder whether the total amount has been recovered as of today. So those are the cautions that we have to put in for people to know that, yes, it is recoverable. Doesn't mean that we can easily or we can readily recover them.
Fair enough. Do you remember the furthest complaint? By that I mean, which complaint dated back the most?
No, I don't remember that.
This is important because if majority of the complaints fall within the past 8 years, it can be construed to be a political witch hunt of just the previous government, could it not?
Well, I didn't even address my mind to that. I come across that argument time and again, especially when I was in office as Auditor General. And people are like, why are you witch hunting us, especially Nanado's administration? But they've forgotten that audits have been done each year and the Constitution requires that we should do an audit. So you go and do audit of 2018 and they say that thing they suspect it happened also in 2017. Why didn't you pick it? And say, but that audit has been done by somebody already. I'm doing only audit of this period. So no matter what you do, anybody who is guilty or complicit in these transactions will find a way of talking about witch hunting. If it is truly witch hunting, it will drop or it will fail when it gets to court.
All right.
If there's no substance in it, it will fail. So
fair
I
enough.
don't see what witch hunting. Yeah.
On the issue of land grabbing, we notice some very highly placed people's names have been published in the document. To the extent that a person is innocent until proven guilty, do you not think that the oral team may have damaged some people's reputations if the investigation by the Attorney General proves that the complaint was not true? Because I see some very serious names, including former justices of the Supreme Court, named as people who have benefited from looting of AU village lands. And in fact, the word looting is himself, if your work is preliminary and not investigative, why are you using the description looting? If you follow my logic.
I do understand you very well. All the issues raised over there are not conclusive. It is suspected looting, not looting. But then we are trying to say that we received information to say that, Ben, you have taken Accra Sports Stadium and you say it is for you instead of it belonging to Ghana. So that's all we are saying. And if you think we have damaged your reputation, yes, you can go to court against us. We will provide the evidence that this is what we received.
Yeah, and
fortunately, in my, I am. It's heartwarming to many times when we are discussing this. I go back to Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General, because the Supreme Court in that decision said that Auditor General was in the habit of talking about MDA spending money or people spending money. It is time for the Auditor General to name the people in the report so that we know who is looting. So the Supreme Court even encouraged Auditor General that stop describing Chief Director and so say Bernard, who is the Chief Director, so that we know who you are talking about. And if we don't have evidence, we will not put Bernard there. So if people put it in context to understand that all that we are saying is based upon the information that we receive, then I don't see there's a problem. We are not finding anybody guilty. Maybe you may not agree with the use of the word. Of course, we all have our...
Yeah, but if I say looting of AU village and I put Daniel Domelevo benefited from purchase of land given to him by the president, I mean, and you've put this on social media and the whole world knows, with your hard-earned reputation as an auditor of international repute, and you say, well, go to court. That's not fair. I mean, we understand the need to recover money, but some of the descriptors you use and some of the people whose names have been mentioned, I think that there is concern about the process's overall intention. You get my point? It seems...
I do understand you.
It
except that if somebody is reading the report without putting it in context, that this report is not a result of investigation or prosecution. This is a report based upon evidence received, and we have made that clear over and over again. So if you put it in that context, that what we are just saying is that people have complained about Daniel Domelevo, that you have taken a state property.
So you should have written complaint about land gotten for cheap. But to say looting is a very serious... If you say somebody is looting, it means the person is the thief.
Well, when I've said this again and I'll repeat it. I say you must put it in context of what the whole report is about. The entire report has not established even a prima facie case against anybody, because it is not even a result of investigation. So whatever word is used there may be unpleasant or may not be appropriate, I agree. But people must understand that it is all based upon suspicion or complaint given.
Yeah, because you in your work as an auditor will not use that word until you come to a certain clear conclusion. That's why sometimes you will use irregularities. Yeah, but you are an auditor and you are there to add your skill to the work. So
no, I was not there to do an audit. If I was there to do an audit, then you wouldn't have received the report yet, because you will have also seen my response from the one I'm auditing. I will not have just identified something and report on it. So we cannot apply the standard of auditing.
Okay. Final point. And thank you. Final point is, we do understand that because we are in a democracy, we need publicly to discuss these matters. But there's a school of thought that when it comes to corruption and these kinds of things, sometimes when you blow the alarm too quickly, the people are able to cover their back. And that in an effort to get the public to know what you're doing, you are probably also giving people who may have done wrong the chance to cover up, so that some of this should have been kept under wraps and sent to the investigative bodies to sort of do more thorough investigation before it is made public. So that in publishing these in the high profile manner in which you've done, you've probably made it easier for people who may be guilty to cover their tracks.
Ben, I cannot agree more with you on that. And personally, that was always my concern. That if we don't take time, by the time we reach there, the evidence that we have will have been erased or created. I'm aware of how, in the course of an audit, we chanced upon an abuse. For instance, an approval was not given. Okay, let me be very specific for you to understand, to illustrate my case. For instance, the audit of Crowe and Associates, when the auditors first chanced on the payment, we couldn't find a contract. So, mind you, normally you ask for it verbally. And since it was not coming, they issued an observation that where is the contract based upon which this payment is done. Then a contract emerged. Fortunately, the people were not smart enough to backdate. But today that people have become very smart, they will have backdated. So they say, but you make payment before you go for a contract. So the contract was signed after the payment. Then he said, okay, since you have signed this contract, how was it procured? Give us the procurement process. Did you go tendering or it was single source? They say single source. Okay, good. If it's a single source, Section 40 of the Procurement Act requires that you must get PPA board approval. Where is it? Then an approval emerged. You look at the date of the approval, it came after the contract has been signed. And I thought they were not smart at the time. Today, as we are giving the heads up to them, many of the people will have done this and dot the I's and cross the T's, such that it's very difficult to nail them. So on that note, let me be honest with you. This is my position, not the committee or the team's position. I would have wished that we just inform the public that, yes, we have done our work finished, we collected our report, and we have given it to the president. And he is giving to the Attorney General. We will hear from the Attorney General.
Well, obviously, you're not the only person there, so you couldn't push your view through. But we thank you for talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that was Daniel Domelevo, former Auditor General and member of the Operation Recover or Loot team, which presented their reports to the president. And they say the amount in question is in excess of 20 billion American dollars. 8:12. Sorry for bringing you this segment late, but let's get into some tech and social media.
Thank you for staying tuned. PENDREAM TV really appreciates your time, and once again say God bless you for the wonderful work you are doing for us on the channel. And to our new members, we urge you to share to all your friends and also turn the notification bell on so that you'll be notified duly of anything that will be loaded onto the channel. Thank you, and God bless you for doing that for us. We have more in stock coming your way. Please do stay tuned.
Dedi kama amena PENDREAM TV ase na so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here to my best of knowledge without any biases. PENDREAM TV.